Hello everyone, this is part 30 of What If Naruto Was a One-of-a-Kind Genius, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. In the end, Naruto found himself strolling towards the Uchiha compound instead of the Senju, where his beloved mother was waiting for him. Perhaps this was because of the change of priorities in his life. He knew that his mother would be waiting for him and there were issues that would be raised once he got home, but there was another issue that he felt he needed to deal with before anything else. Hence his appearance in the home of Sasuke. It was a good thing the Uchiha wasn't home. Had he been here, things may turn towards another direction. At least they appeared to have solved some of their problems. This way, he could still talk to the Uchiha, but at the same time, his language and tone would have to differ. Obviously, Sasuke wasn't going to take any more crap from him. Naruto sighed. For someone like him, this was one blind situation he had gotten himself into. It wasn't the time for regrets though. He didn't regret his actions with Mikoto anyway. One way or the other, she had taught him valuable lessons in life and about women. It wasn't just about getting and dancing around in joy, but there had been lessons she tried to impart on him. He could say she had succeeded. She hadn't been reaping anything from it though. He had turned out the gears elsewhere. Perhaps it was because he had become so used to her that he no longer felt the need to express the little emotions he had. It wasn't the case with his mother, but she wasn't the person you wanted to compare with. His mother was everything after all. Naruto, Mikoto said, a sad smile on her face. She was standing just away from the entrance, having heard someone entering. She had known it wasn't Sasuke, so she had come to check. It could have been someone from the clan, who knew. Naruto managed a smile, it was tiny, but a smile nonetheless. This was his fault. This wasn't the woman who smiled at him when she was lying in the hospital after Itachi's madness. This wasn't the happy woman who told him that she would help him enjoy life, the woman who told him that he was her hero. This was another woman who was going through some difficult situation in her life. There was a lot that she needed to figure out. A lot she had to deal with, and it was all because of their actions. They had walked into this hell but and all smiles. There was still no regrets even. It was quite possible that the lack of regrets caused the pain. Consequences were never part of the plan. The intention was to enjoy oneself. But this was life, there were reactions to an action. I didn't think I'd see you so soon, Mikoto said. She assumed he had just left the hospital. Tsunade had said that she would wake him up today. Even so, she had thought he would be by his mother, sorting out their issues as he ignored her. She hasn't even spoken to Kushina since the incident. She has not even tried anything. The past days have just been handling clan matters and taking some time to visit the blonde Uzumaki. She had been careful so not to bump into Kushina along the way. With how things ended, she didn't know how the woman would react in her presence. Kushina blamed her for everything and Mikoto could not fault the woman. Had it not been for her, Naruto would not have faced a life-threatening situation and Kushina would not have worried. Sasuke had been close to mortally wounding her. The child she was carrying would have been no more had Naruto not pushed her out of the way. Naruto didn't say anything in response. Even though this was Mikoto's house, he still led her outside, by the garden. The two settled down before the blonde spoke. I decided to go home, but after meeting Sasuke, I figured that you were all alone. I will always be with my mother and she has Yugao to keep her company. I think Kakashi is already by the Senju now. You're all alone. There is no one you can talk to. Sasuke isn't the kind of person you can speak with about these issues. I thought it would be cruel for me if I just let you be. We are in this together after all. My mother isn't just mad at me, she is mad at both of us. You did not force me to do anything, I decided to go with it because I wanted to. Mikoto really had no one to talk to, and that made it even more of a burden to her. She was touched that Naruto would think of her in that way. She hadn't thought that he could put her in such a place. The fact that she hadn't even expected to see him so soon after just being awakened spoke volumes. She was touched, but Mikoto wasn't going to cry. She wasn't going to cry in front of Naruto. I'm still clueless with some things, but this time in the hospital has given me time to think. I cannot pretend to understand what is going on in your head, or how you feel. But that is the reason I have chosen to come here. I want to know, how can I be of assistance, Mikoto? To be honest, Mikoto was shocked. For a second, she had thought that this was just an illusion. There was no way that Naruto could say those words to her in his right mind, right? He was okay with her, but he wouldn't take it that far. He was still Uzumaki Naruto, Kushina's son after all. Yet, no matter how many reasons Mikoto tried to give, the reality would not go away. This wasn't just an illusion, it was a hard reality. It wasn't bad. In fact, it brought her joy. She now knew that Naruto wasn't going to abandon her. He was going to be by her side, and that made her happy despite how surprising it was. Mikoto smiled, a beautiful happy smile. She knew though, it wasn't because Naruto cared too much of her. Mikoto shook her head. He has only asked about her personal health. He wanted to know how she was holding up. It was about Uchiha Mikoto. There are times you feel that you just need someone to hold you. Naruto knew that. He had gone through those occasions with his mother when she was crying. She had held him tightly in her pain because in those moments, she needed someone to hold her. It hadn't been pretty seeing his mother in that condition, but he had been happy that he was with her at all times. But right now, I just want you to listen, can you do that, Naruto? Naruto nodded. He could at least afford her that much. She was also going through a difficult time. If listening could help ease her burdens, then Naruto would do so. Seeing him nod slowly, Mikoto smiled contently, but she didn't say a word until a minute or so passed. She was enjoying the peace that came with his response. That was the second time you saved my life, and once again, it was from my own son. Sasuke's situation was different, but the picture is the same. There are 2 instances that my sons could have Kami, and each time I was saved by you. The first time it hadn't been out of concern for her safety or anything. He had done it merely to protect his mother, and he had thought it was only rational for Itachi to do things in a different way than what Danzo was suggesting that he do. The second he had done it because he had been genuinely concerned. Nevertheless, because Mikoto said she just wanted him to listen, Naruto didn't say a word. He would only speak if she asks a question that wasn't rhetorical. I hope this one is a girl and doesn't end up doing the same as her siblings, because really, I don't think I could survive something like that emotionally. Although a couple of seconds earlier he had been thinking he wouldn't say anything, Naruto felt compelled to respond. Even though his response brought some fears in him, he felt it was the only right response that he had to give. If it becomes a girl, we will just have to raise her differently to guard against something like that. We must also ensure that she loves her mother as I love my mother. I feel that these incidents have taken away the love a mother would feel from her children, so, even if she does love you so much more that I become the sideshow, I wouldn't complain. You say that now, but who knows, Mikoto said, smiling. Naruto shook his head. I want you to be loved by your own child. He wasn't going to say, but he could not give her sufficient love. Their relationship was his mother would not permit it to continue. Letting her being loved by her child was the best he could give, and he would not take away that from her. Senju compound. When Naruto walked into the compound, he couldn't help but feel the difference between it and his house. Besides that, they had moved without him. He was just joining his family after they had moved. The situation in which they had moved within didn't even make him smile because it was unpleasant. He would have been happy if things had moved differently, but he had made a mess of things. His mother was displeased with him. Yugao was probably glaring at Mikoto. Relationships that had been strong had been shook, and he had to try to mend them. He had never done that part before. Starting them was his speciality, but trying to put them together after they have broken was a foreign thing for him. At least he couldn't say that his relationship with his mother had been destroyed, neither was the one he shared with Yugao. Things had just taken a swing, and they would sit down and talk things out. The only problem was that this was going to scar them for the rest of their lives. There was no way that they could forget about it. Not when there was another product of it. The little one that would start showing soon on Mikoto's belly would be with them for their rest of their lives. Warm hands snapped Naruto out of his thoughts. He blinked once, and saw only red. His mother was holding him in a firm and, yet, gentle embrace. Don't space out like that, you'll get your mother worried. Kushina whispered softly. It made her worried seeing her dear son standing like a statue. He was obviously thinking deep about something. It wasn't good for him, especially since he had just gotten out of the hospital. He had to take things slowly, but they might not have that time. Kushina realized her contradicting thoughts, but she just shook it off. She was happy Naruto was back home where he belonged, not the crappy hospital. Even though Tsunade had kept telling her that there was no need to worry as he was fine, she had just kept him asleep so that she could do her tests without him trying to escape, and the fact that he needed to rest fully, Kushina had still worried. What kind of a mother would she be if she couldn't worry about her son? There hadn't been a day that she had gone to visit the hospital, and back then, when he was even doing dangerous missions in Anbu. However, an emotional situation that would affect the rest of their lives had seen him end up in the hospital. Kushina had been worried for his life. She had seen his demise. His life was flickering before her very eyes. She couldn't afford to lose him, not now, not when she was still alive. Children were supposed to bury their parents, not the other way around. Naruto raised both his hands. He hesitated for a moment. He wasn't expecting his mother to give him a warm embrace after everything. Because of him, she had cried, she had been in pain. He deserved nothing but punishment to making her worry. He had sworn to be there for her and protect her not just from physical harm, but emotional pain as well, and yet, he was the one who ended up causing her pain. What a despicable son he was. He was a failure as her protector. Yet, this woman who he knew loved him dearly, was hugging him so warmly. She was still worried for him. She was happy to see him in both his feet. Naruto felt compelled to place his hands on her back and pull her much closer. When was the last time he cried? Naruto could not remember. He hadn't cried in a long time. Yet, this time around, under his mother's embrace, Naruto felt his eyes warm up. Why? He has been calm about the whole issue that faced him. He was going to be father, and that didn't scare him the least. No, it did scare him. He might not have had a father when growing up. He could do something, he would manage. Yes, there were still so many things that he wanted to do and now, would not be able to do because of this development, but it wasn't anything scary, was it? He had faced much scarier things in his life. Kushina patted Naruto on his back gently. Don't worry, Naruto, everything will be all right. Wasn't he supposed to be the one telling her that things would be all right? That he could fix things? Wasn't he supposed to be apologizing for agonizing her with his actions? She wasn't supposed to be the one trying to soothe his heavy heart. Kushina smiled sadly. You've held it all in for a long time, Naruto. It's okay, I'm your mother. It was sad, yet not really a bad thing. Her beloved son was finally showing his hidden emotions. She had known for the longest time that he wasn't completely emotionless. He had them, just didn't know how to deal with them and sometimes just ignored them in favor of thinking with facts. Yet, it was being with emotions that made him fear his own darkness. If he was completely emotionless, he wouldn't fear going bad, and he wouldn't love her as much as he does. He wouldn't have even cared for Mikoto or even Yugao. Mother and son stood for a couple of moments before Yugao decided to stop it. If someone walks in the room, they will get the wrong picture, she said calmly, a raised brow. You two do realize that your relationship sometimes crosses the boundaries of mother and son. Kushina had told her of how things were in the younger days of Naruto. If someone had walked into the room and found them cuddling in bed, they would have thought of incest. It wouldn't have been something ridiculous to believe. Yugao had seen it in her days as Anbu. Brothers married their sisters and sons married their mothers. Those kind of things happened in this world. The look from Naruto told her that he wouldn't even think of something like that. If Yugao's brow wasn't already up, she would have raised it in curiosity. For someone who seems repulsed by that idea, you certainly didn't have a problem in your activities with Mikoto. There was silence as Kushina separated from Naruto. The redhead turned to look straight at Yugao. She could recognize some bitterness in the woman's tone, but this wasn't the time for that. They had to sit down and talk things out as a family. Of course, they would have another talk with the Uchihas about a way forward. They still needed to deal with things on their own. There is no need for that tone, Yugao. Kushina said in a stern tone. Though, To be honest, I am disappointed in you, Naruto. You're still a teenage boy and yet you have done this. I know this is the shinobi world and age doesn't matter, but before my eyes, you're a child and the same should have been the same for Mikoto. Kushina said with a shake of her head. She then took Naruto's left hand, and dragged him towards the sitting room with Yugao following from behind. Once they had all settled down, Kushina stared at Naruto and spoke. Please help me understand the situation, Naruto. What did you see her in her? Naruto was silent for at least a minute, but no one said anything as he browsed through his memories. He was a thinking person after all, but during the past week, he had organized his thoughts. Looking back at his mother, Naruto drew a line on his lips. I guess it started when she called me her hero for saving her life and the Uchiha. Those words she uttered meant more to me than anything anyone aside from you had said. I think perhaps a part of me always wanted to hear those kind of words. It isn't just father who was the hero of the Hidden Leaf, we were all heroes. On that fateful night, we all did our part. You restrained the Kyuubi and father sealed it in me. Yet, the S was being worshipped and we were cursed. The experience was bitter, I learned to hate, resent, but in my hatred, I realized that I would explode to hate. Therefore, I stopped looking at the villagers as people because of their actions. Therefore, when Mikoto said those words to me, with an honest smile, because of my actions, even though it hadn't been intended, I was truly happy. I learned to care for her because she had recognized my existence. I don't know about her side, but I can say that my close relationship started there. Yugao didn't add her own sense. She had something to say, but she wisely kept her mouth shut. It wasn't always wise to say some things. There was a saying that some things are better left unsaid. What she would have said wouldn't have painted a good picture of Mikoto. Naruto may not care about it, but his mother would have cared. Kushina had nothing to say about the issue really. They couldn't undo what has happened and she could not erase it from her mind. It had happened and she had to accept it. Well, she has had a lot of time to think about the issue without Mikoto and Naruto present to say something. The Uzumaki sighed. I'm still not happy, but we still have a future to look forward to. We cannot hold resentment feelings over what has happened because it accomplishes nothing of benefit to our mental health. She said. I'm truly sorry for causing you pain, mother. Naruto said. I know you're. Kushina said with a small smile. If I'd known that you were still the little child you were back then, I wouldn't have reacted the way I did. I was surprised that Sasuke would try to K you though. From her tone, Naruto could tell that his mother wasn't happy with the Uchiha. Well, it was to be expected. Sasuke had tried to K him and would have K his own mother in the process. Had it not been for his swift action, it wasn't Mikoto they were going to bury. Before the blonde could respond, Yugao spoke. If it had been him, she said pointing at Naruto, he would not have tried. He would have K Sasuke in gruesome fashion. Kushina blinked as she stared at Naruto. Should she really be surprised that he wasn't denying it? She smiled though. It would just be like Naruto to do something like that, so it wasn't really a surprise. Well, he is still his mother's son. She said with a shrug. It doesn't make what Sasuke did right though, but there is nothing I can do about it. In his eyes, you did violate his mother. Naruto had nothing against that knowing that he would have done as Yugao had said. That would perhaps be the one time he would allow his emotions to get the better of him. In any case, it wasn't Sasuke in his position, so things hadn't been any drastic in terms of the outcome. Things could have taken a nasty turn had he not reacted quickly to get Mikoto out of the way. If Sasuke had ended up K his mother, he would have been the one at fault. The Uchiha would have likely turned on his mother and for revenge. If a disaster like that had occurred, Naruto would have K Sasuke and then he would be left all alone in this world. Yes, that darkness of him would have rejoiced at the turn of events. It was only waiting for one thing to flip things to show its sharp fangs and this world would see a demon it has never seen before. A Naruto born of those events would have been much more frightening than the stories of the Kyuubi. If Konoha trembled at the presence of the Kyuubi, it would wet its pants at the mention of his name. Fortunately, things didn't go that far and it was safe. A couple of hours later. Hokage office. Jiraiya stared at Naruto as the blonde walked into the office and settled down. Even when Naruto looked back at him, the Sannin didn't back off. He just kept staring at him for a couple of minutes before looking away. He turned his stare outside the window, looking down at the streets of the Hidden Leaf. If I'd known that things would turn out that way, I would have quickly returned with you. The Sannin said. It had been an option to return with the blonde after their battle with Pain, but he had stayed behind when Naruto said all was well. Besides that, he wanted to speak with Nagato. But, apparently, Naruto's situation was the emergency as it could have resulted in death. Otherwise, his dialogue with Nagato and Konan had been fruitful. He learned everything that happened to them after he separated from them. They had truly started well, but people were treacherous. He could not believe that Danzo had a hand in Hanzo's actions. Well, at least Naruto had gotten rid of the War Hawk, but it had been a little too late. At that time, the man had made himself comfortable in the Hokage office. His sensei should have gotten rid of the snake long ago, but he didn't, and other people paid the price for it. You wouldn't have done anything to change things, Jiraiya. It was better that things happen in the way they did. Thoughts all clear now and we all know where we stand, Naruto said with a shrug of his shoulders. We don't know that, Jiraiya was quick to say in a firm tone. I have a lot of experience in life. Who knows, maybe I could have helped. The Sannin offered. Naruto thought of snorting, but that would surely be unbecoming of him. This whole situation was making him express a bit more of emotions on him. Well, he would have to show a little more of emotions if he is to be a good person in the future. By that he meant, father. He didn't want to say it because it was causing him some confusions. Looking at the Sannin, Naruto could not help but still comment on the man's experience. Yes, your experience in getting beat up by the delightful blonde in front of us would have been helpful. Yes, I can see how you would have handled the situation. You have a good reputation with having a silver tongue after all. Jiraiya stared at the blonde for a long minute. I was only trying to help, he said. And I was offering a sarcastic response to your offer, Naruto responded lazily. In any case, you're a greater man than I am, Jiraiya. You have survived for so long, standing behind the object of your feelings and yet getting nothing in return. To be honest, I'd go berserk in such an event. My advances have always been received in kind. I have never come to say, there is that one that got away. Tsunade raised an eyebrow. You're not being sarcastic about it, she said of Naruto, saying Jiraiya was a better man than he was. Of course, not, Naruto said. Despite everything, Jiraiya is a great shinobi. Having fought by his side in a real battle, I cannot say otherwise or even disrespect Hisla as a Sannin. But my remark in that wasn't about power, but the strength of the heart. Tsunade shook her head. She wasn't going to get into a talk about the heart with Naruto. You're also comparing love and manipulation, she stated. How can you compare love and manipulation? Those are two different things. Depends on how you look at it, Naruto said. Manipulation doesn't just deal with the mind, but to successfully manipulate someone, you must grab their heart. You must make them love you. It is the case with Orochimaru's subordinates. They would rather than betray him. Why do you think is that? That love is twisted, Jiraiya was quick to say. I didn't say it wasn't, Naruto said. Perhaps my example wasn't the best. In any case, my situation is fine. We can get to the main subject, which is happens now. This was the reason he had been called here. With the Akatsuki handled, they needed a way forward. It wasn't to say that things were over by now, there was still the threat. The masked Uchiha was still in the picture. Seeing that the man was playing behind the scenes, it was likely that he would attempt to attack Nagato if the latter decides to truly forsake his ways and look for a new way to find peace. Naruto wasn't going to rest until he grabbed that man by his throat and mutilate him to his heart's content. There were only two people he hated in this world, and that was the masked Uchiha and Orochimaru. He would get them both. It was even more of a necessity for him to prioritize on the painful deaths now that he was expecting a troublesome future with big responsibilities. Tsunade shook her head slightly after Naruto's response. Jiraiya was telling me that he has handled his former student, but I want you both to know that I want nothing to do with it. If it becomes known that you have been working with a former leader of the Akatsuki, I will deny any knowledge of it, and if there will be someone who has to be hanged for it, you two will face the music. There really is no need to go that far, Naruto said to the Godime Hokage. We can blame someone else for the Akatsuki mess. True, both Kumo and Iwa will want be after what happened, but they will get their Jinchurikis. Nevertheless, we can blame the masked Uchiha who calls himself Madara for what has happened. I know he was behind the Kyuubi's incident years ago, and from what Nagato said, it is safe to say he has been the brains behind gathering the Bijuas for bigger plans than what Nagato had in mind. But if the shove comes, I will face the music. I'm sure I can persuade whoever has bad intentions. Besides, if we are thinking of creating a better environment, doesn't it start with looking past actions of the lost? As long as people are willing to admit that they were wrong and do attempt to plan things differently, then I see no reason to put them on the K list. Well, Naruto was saying that, but he would never allow a snake as Orochimaru to continue living if the opportunity presented itself for him to end the snake. That was one rotten piece of meat that he could not forgive for the actions it has committed against humanity. The same can be said for Madara. Tsunade didn't think that Naruto would go that far. He almost didn't allow any blemish along his way. He liked to keep himself dignified and with a reputation. Well, everything was going to go down the drain once it becomes known that Mikoto was going to give birth to his child. People would start looking at him somehow, but the Godime was still certain that her fellow blonde would not care about it. Still, what are you really planning to do with Nagato? Tsunade asked, her tone carrying some weight in it. Nothing has been decided, Naruto said. He was planning to get the man involved in the hunt for stability within the elemental nations. There was no harm in having along the way. In case things heat up, they could always depend on the man's power to tip the scales in the favor of whatever scheme he would have to cook up once his mind settles the issues between his mother and Mikoto and then Yugao. But Nagato desires peace. Although that isn't specifically what I want, we still come to same conclusion. The Mizukage can agree with me on that one. Naruto said. In any case, I have not thought of what to do exactly with the man. Nevertheless, it is without doubt that we will do something together soon. He is still an Uzumaki. The Uzumaki relation was something that Tsunade had missed. She knew that for Naruto, the Uzumaki B held some value. He was thinking of restoring his clan after all. If they found a full B Uzumaki somewhere out there, they would surely try to work with him for the sake of helping one of them. You said you were planning on meeting the Tsuchikage's daughter, Tsunade said. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow upon hearing that. Are you sure you want to do that? The Sannin asked. Kurotsuki wasn't just the granddaughter of the Tsuchikage, she was a powerful Kunoichi of the Hidden Rock. Not to mention if things go the way Jiraiya was seeing, she was likely going to end up as the Yondaime Tsuchikage. Onoki was already pushing it, but he could still hold on for a couple of more years. The old geezer was stubborn. It was likely he would hold on to his position until he could no longer move on his own. It was interesting that Naruto would target her. Surely, the blonde had the same thoughts as her. He had already moved towards the delightful Godime Mizukage and Suna was basically his other home. There was definitely something going on behind the things. The Sannin wasn't worried, just curious. The worrying fact about it was meeting Kurotsuki. That woman was known for her love for her village. It was likely that he would see Naruto as nothing more than a threat to Iwagakure, and if she had that idea, fireworks would ignite. Naruto wasn't going to sit still and allow her to do whatever she pleases. If I wasn't sure, I wouldn't be thinking about it, Naruto said with a shrug in response to Jiraiya's cautious words. I'm just saying. Jiraiya started. Your father isn't thought of fondly within the Hidden Rock. I don't think this Kurotsuki would be favorable in seeing you. Naruto merely smiled. You worry too much, Jiraiya. I'm aware of the facts, but I'm still going to seek an audience with her. It might prove difficult, but I will get her to think highly of me and not as an enemy. The blonde said in a firm tone. We must recognize that Kiri and Suna are still the weakest in the great hidden villages. If something were to break out, they wouldn't be able to make a difference. Kumo and Iwa are big, that is why we must not forget about them. Convincing the Raikage to play along would be easy, but I shelved that because of it. A is an understanding person, even though he does allow his emotions to get the best of him. The Tsuchikage is one tough person. Nevertheless, I have no interest in talking to him. If I can befriend his granddaughter, all will be well. We can strike a mutual agreement with the cages, and obviously, Kumo would have to play along to avoid being left behind. My idea is that we must keep the doors open for each cage and try to strike something of a mutual understanding between the cages. That can go a long way to creating a trust between the leaders. If that happens, that trust becomes the bridge that connects the hidden villages. Jiraiya smiled. If I didn't know any better, I'd think you were running for peace with a sincere heart. The Sannin said, well, I now understand why Sensei used to say that if circumstances were different, you would be a very kind person. In some cases, he used to say that you are a kind person. Tsunade had to agree with that note. Well, what is coming should soften his heart. The Godime said, with a particular picture in mind. I don't like that you use Mikoto in this way. Naruto said, knowing that Tsunade was talking about the child developing of the Uchiha. Well, it can't be helped. He said with a shake of his head. What did Nagato say about the masked Uchiha? The blonde asked Jiraiya. Nothing much. Jiraiya said with a frown. It appears that he doesn't know much about him. No, he doesn't really know anything about the man or his hidden goals. That is disappointing, but not unexpected. Naruto said. With sigh. How is Ino's training going? Naruto asked the black-haired shinobi. He was curious because now was the time to act. He was even going to call some favors for the people who owe him because he could not remain at one place. He had to make movements into angles that will position him into a place of influence. He had been okay with planning the dark arts, but given that he had no one who could play the front battle for him, he had to play it himself. Besides that, he had thought that he could not play things in a way that was needed for someone who presented himself as human-loving. The stakes were even bigger this time around. There was much more that he needed to protect, and for that to happen, he needed to exhaust his resources. It is moving smoothly, Sai said. She has a natural ability in gathering intelligence. But she lacks the discipline to keep it, Sai said. Naruto looked thoughtful for a couple of moments before responding. She has always been a bit of a gossiper. It will prove to be slightly difficult to get her to shut her mouth. There are useless things to talk about, and the things we will need to be kept private because they could get one into trouble. I will try to work things with her. The thoughts might be brutal in the form of real-life experiences. There is no better way for her to learn than letting slip of something vital that could put her in danger or someone else. I just need to be able to manage the situation thereafter. Sai merely nodded. What do you plan on feeding her? I will think about it. It isn't a final decision, just something I will decide after I have spoken with her to see where we stand, Naruto said. But of course, I will consult with you, and in case you have a better suggestion, I will consider it. Sai raised an eyebrow upon hearing those words from the blonde. He wasn't expecting Naruto to say something like that to him. They almost never asked for their opinion, he was always following the orders. Well, things to change. And it wouldn't be so bad to have things work differently. I think I can manage her though, Sai suggested. We haven't had a lot of time together, but she isn't a private person, so understanding her has been a little easy. Naruto shook his head. Don't let that fool you, Sai. Don't say you can fully understand a woman. I haven't had much time with them, but in my experience, they are unpredictable creatures capable of so many things. What makes them dangerous is that they can do those things whilst still showing you an innocent look. The blonde paused for a moment before saying, I will trust your judgment, nevertheless. Are you sure? Naruto was silent for about a minute or so as he thought things over. What is fundamental in a relationship, Sai? He asked, but didn't wait for Sai to respond. Perhaps full manipulation of your subjects may be fundamental to some people. But what I have come to realize is that a lasting and strong relationship that is truly beneficial, not just now, but tomorrow as well, is one built on trust. When you work on trust, you eliminate the possibilities of revenge at a later date when your strings crumble or when someone else plays the game. Of course, saying that, I don't mean that trust is absolute. Whilst a core thing, it is also a fragile little thing that can be destroyed easily. It is in that situation that you must be logical, otherwise, you will crumble as well. I have given you responsibilities. You know me, my house, where I sleep, how I sleep. That means I trust you that much. But it goes a little far when I trust you to make some decisions rather than micromanaging every little thing you do. What I am saying is that, I want you to make decisions when you think it is best. If you're not sure, then come to me and we will deal with it together. It had come to Sai's mind that Naruto was having him train Ino so that she could replace him as the leader of his spy network. If the girl managed to behave, she could play her role well. Who would suspect her of being a spy? She wasn't the quietest person, And she really did say a lot of things. That train of thought gave Sai a thought. Maybe they didn't have to change the girl. She just had to manage to hold on to the things that were meant to be hidden. That way, no one would suspect her. If she suddenly stopped, people would start asking questions. Thanks for the trust, and I will handle the situation. Sai said. You need to handle things though. Naruto didn't mistake the seriousness in Sai's tone. What has happened? You were right to say that she is a rather perceptive person. She found out about you and Mikoto and has been troubled by it. She has been drinking a lot. I've had someone keep an eye on her to ensure that nothing bad happens. Naruto frowned. His relationship with Ino goes a long way back. There were some feelings that he has tried to ignore for her sake. I will speak to her. The blonde said. I need you to head out to Oto. Find whatever you can on Orochimaru's whereabouts and the Uzumaki with him. Once you have his tail, have your rats keep a tail on him and I will try to get Sasuke to move with me to eliminate him. Sai nodded. There was something with Naruto that made him curious. The blonde didn't appear to favor fighting alone, and it wasn't because he feared his opponent or that he was weak. Naruto was strong, but he didn't like fight alone. Sai was positive that Naruto didn't fear Orochimaru. He had gone to the snake alone before. Why do you always do that? You don't like showing your power to people. Power is a dangerous thing, Sai. I try to limit my output as much as I can. Besides, I don't want to fool myself into believing that I can do all things by myself. You cannot do all things on your own, Naruto explained lightly. Be sure to keep away from Orochimaru because if you get close, he will get you. Sai nodded. I know, Sai said. He knew that Orochimaru was a dangerous person and even if he doesn't make a mistake, the man would still be able to get to him. The important thing was to keep a good distance to be able to escape once the snake makes its move on him. Where can I find Ino? Naruto asked. A couple of minutes later. Naruto stood at the entrance of a shinobi establishment. It was different one from the one he had visited with his former Anbu colleagues. This was uncivilized. He could see people of all kinds, men and women moving about in intoxicated merry as slurs and sly talk impregnated the atmosphere with naughty intentions. Everyone seemed to be lost in their own little world. His presence wasn't even noticed. Naruto shook his head as he ignored everyone else to look for the person he needed to see. He found her sitting by a stool just beside the bar counter, 3 men surrounding her. Their intentions were written all over. Was this something that happened every day? Ino was still a Kunoichi, so normal people would not be able to take advantage of her. Yet, if she was dealing with stronger shinobi, they would do whatever they wanted, even if she was refusing. Sai said he had someone looking after her. That meant that someone was within this place. For a moment, Naruto thought of searching, but a signal was sent towards him in a wave of chakra, which only those associated with him could note. His eyes narrowed towards his left. A dark corner and a pair of crimson eyes stared back at him. The Uzumaki nodded and walked towards Ino. The woman didn't turn to face him. It was apparent that she didn't notice him with all the muscles hovering by her side. Well, a young Kunoichi who was developed in all the right areas, drunk and alone, wasn't she an easy target? Ino might not have noticed him, but the muscles around her did. What do you want, brat? This one is ours. How distasteful. Just because she was alone and drunk didn't mean that she was there for the taking. They were imposing, and he was sure that Ino wasn't that kind of girl who would pick up strangers and take them towards a dark alley for them to do nasty things to her. She is just a teenage girl, you, drunk and not thinking straight, yet you 3 want to gang up on her. Naruto asked in a calm tone. He wasn't happy, but that didn't reflect in his tone. Ha! One of them jumped on his face. The man was larger than him and his breath was burning through his face with its stinking smell that made him want to grab the man's face and drag it through the floor. You got something to say, Gaki? Naruto was tempted to shove his fingers straight in the man's eyes and blind him. But that would be too hard on the man. He hasn't done anything to Ino, but his intentions were all too clear. He could just beat him up and throw him in a bin with other trash. Still, looking at those dark eyes, Naruto felt compelled to raise his hand. For a second, he debated on whether he should grab the man's throat or his face. A second later, the blonde grabbed the man by the throat and in a split second, sent them hurling to the other side without even batting an eye. The other 2 were upon him, As slow as they were, Naruto didn't bother trying to hit them, he just snapped his fingers and they dropped to the ground. No one reacted to the little scene. It was something usual in such a place, he figured. Naruto took a step closer to Ino, who he was now sure was just ignoring his presence. He wasn't going to sit with her and share a drink, he just wanted to get her out of here and they could talk on another day. Ino. The blonde twisted around sharply, and looked at him with a strange look on her face. She then looked away without saying a word to him. Ino looked at her drink for a moment before gulping its contents. I can't believe that you turned me down because you were shagging an old hag. I thought we did have something special between us, and yet, it's not just her, but Yugao as well. Naruto sighed. We do, that is why I am here with you, Ino. Are you sure it isn't because I'm now one of your pets? Not at all, I'm here because I care for you. I've always been your knight, and I have no thoughts of stopping. You were my only friend in childhood, the only person who tried. Naruto paused and attempted to smile, but he could not. Can we go somewhere else? I can see that you're not drunk. Ino turned around once more, this time she got from her stool and faced Naruto, standing just inches away. There is really nothing to talk about. I was just sad because my pride as a woman was wounded. I thought, to you, I am but a child, that's why you went for the old hag. Naruto shook his head. That isn't quite true, Ino. I know that you have grown, you have always been a level above those your age. But I live a different life, I didn't want you to get involved in it. I thought not to hurt you, because when it comes to me, you never know. Ino snorted. That's crap, she said. You're making me join your shadowy work, and yet you still say you refused me because you didn't want me into something dangerous. She paused, placed both her hands on Naruto's shoulders, staring inventively. If that contradiction is really the truth, can I prove to you that I am strong and not a mere child who needs to be protected by a mother's boy? Naruto didn't get to respond because just then, there was hunger in the way she went about it, but Naruto didn't deny the girl what she desired. He simply allowed her to do what she wanted to do for about a minute or so before pushing her back. It's admirable that you still look fine, but there is undoubtedly alcohol in your system, otherwise, you would not be so brave. So, Naruto looked at the blonde strangely for a moment. What was he to do with this girl? She wanted something. If he was a womanizer, he wouldn't waste time to give it to her, but what would happen after it? He was likely not going to continue seeing Mikoto, so he could be left with just Yugao, but wasn't that enough? He didn't need to involve Ino in his twisted urges, did he? Though, looking at it, it wouldn't be so bad. He could manage things afterwards. Naruto quickly shook his head. Since when did he become such a person? The Uzumaki tilted his head to the side. Let us get out of here, he said, holding out his right hand. This place doesn't suit you. The following day, it was still morning, but the house was already in need of a comic to lighten up the mood. It was a heavy atmosphere within the house. This was because the Uchiha were already present. They were in the house of Uzumaki to deal with the outstanding matters caused by the children who have misbehaved. Naruto didn't feel that much dragged by the atmosphere. He was fine with it, just a little worn out. He had slept a bit late, and was forced to come back home so early in the morning because of this arrangement. He was still happy that they were going to solve this matter. The longer it hanged over their shoulders, the more of a burden it became. Kushina sighed as she thought of what to say to Mikoto. Honestly, she still felt betrayed by the woman. She hadn't thought that Mikoto would do something to her. But the woman was her friend and she would not hold a grudge over it. Yet, the feeling of betrayal still lingered within her heart. I won't say much, Kushina said. You're expecting my grandson, and that is something that I can look away from. It really doesn't matter where it is coming from, although I would have been happy if it came from somewhere not from my best friend, I still have to live with it. However, you are to stop whatever you had with my son. I will not permit it any further. Naruto will be the father of your child, and that will be the end of it. I'm not saying he must stop caring and only look at the child. I'm saying that thing you did when we were not looking must come to an end. Mikoto smiled, it was a bit of a sad smile. I understand, she said. She could not say she was sorry that she had become pregnant because truly, she wasn't sorry. Perhaps she might have planned it, but that didn't matter at this stage. She was looking forward to the future and nothing else. I still hope that we can get along. I don't really have any other friends outside. Kushina was silent for a few moments. That was the truth. Mikoto couldn't count on Sasuke to offer her emotional support. With Sasuke, it was as if she had no one. She had Naruto. In her times of need, he has always been there for her for comfort. Naruto has always been someone she could talk to even when it was dealing with emotions because that was the side of him that had only been reserved for her. He was growing now, he could offer support to other people. Kushina was happy about it. She has always wanted her son to grow up and open to other people. That was what being alive meant. Mikoto being pregnant wouldn't be all that bad. Perhaps for the woman, it would be something that makes her feel alive again. She could get to care for someone, smile and raise another child. Whilst I feel betrayed, I don't think we can ever be separated, Mikoto. I cannot even entirely blame you for this because Naruto isn't a child who can be deceived by sweet words. He got into it because he wanted to. Kushina sent Naruto a look. In any case, I still have to stay close to ensure that everything goes perfectly. Thank you, Kushina, I really mean it. I'm sorry for betraying your trust. Kushina just nodded before standing up. Stay for breakfast, she said. This was going much better than what Naruto had expected. He had known things would go well, but he hadn't thought it would be in this manner. Either way, he was pleased that everything seemed to have settled. That look his mother gave him just told him that he was still going to have to deal with his mother about his own actions as well. Mikoto insisted on helping Kushina prepare and the Uzumaki didn't see any problem with it. She allowed her to take part in the preparation of breakfast. Yugao didn't want to be left alone and went to join the others. You're awfully obedient when your mother is around, Sasuke said, looking straight at Naruto. I should not be surprised though. I have always told you to respect your mother, Sasuke. I respect mine. Naruto paused for a moment, smiling, a flat smile. Perhaps you may find offense in that statement as you can say that I did not respect you or your mother in what has happened. But that would be looking at things in one side. Your mother isn't a child, she knows what she is doing and whatever that she does. Continuing to look at me with contempt is nothing but a stupid activity that will only make you a bitter Uchiha. Well, that isn't for me to decide to say. You have your own ways, and I have mine. He wasn't going to tell Sasuke on how to live his life. He was no longer looking after the Uchiha. He had done so before because Itachi had asked him to do so. But now Sasuke had grown, no longer a child and someone who could think for himself. He didn't have to say anything, the Uchiha had to decide what was better for himself. He even had his mother with him. Although the Uchiha didn't use her effectively, she was still there for him. Sasuke raised an eyebrow. The blonde wasn't trying to force his ideas on him. In fact, he was telling him that he could whatever that he wanted to do. Naruto had always thought that he knew best and wasn't afraid to tell him what to do and what not to do. You're being highly considerate. If you had been like this before, things could have been different. Naruto shook his head. It's not that I am being considerate, I just realize that a person cannot stay a child forever. When we grow, parents allow us to make choices for ourselves. Of course, it is how we live our lives that will get parents trying to control what we do. It all depends on your mindset and attitude, the blonde stated. In any case, how is Anbu training going so far? Sasuke shrugged. Fine, he said. They are much more human than what people make him out to be. That is because it is necessary for them. Anbu cannot afford to fail missions, and their missions involve risking their lives and killing people left and right. If you lose yourself in that area, you become nothing more than a K with no emotions but instincts to K. That is why they teach you discipline and they always try to be lively on their own, just to remember that they are still humans. Anyone can join the Black Ops, but only those with strong will and discipline can survive. Danzo tried to remove emotions from his forces because he believed that emotions were the ones that could lead you into temptations. But I believe it is all about self-control. If you manage the art of controlling yourself, you manage yourself in a balanced manner. For you, the only problem would be pride and lack of respect for authority. If you can respect your superiors, rain down on your pride, no doubt you will excel. Working in the shadows would fit you perfectly. I had thought that was a job reserved for me. Why? Is it because you fear that doing good will get Konoha to praise you and ultimately shatter every little thing you have against humans? Naruto raised an eyebrow, but he did not respond to the question. Sai has gone out to look for Orochimaru's whereabouts. Once he has found him, I will wear my mask once more and you shall have your first S-rank mission. That is something I can do, Sasuke said calmly. If there was something he liked about the blonde, it was that when it came to fighting opponents, Naruto didn't always to take the spotlight for himself. The blonde didn't have any trouble in standing back to allow someone to fight. He knew that he would get to fight Orochimaru and would not just get to watch the blonde fight. Excellent, I will talk to Tsunade about it. Later that day. It was always my assumption that you would know why the Akatsuki was intent on gathering Jinchurikis and in their specific order. Once Gaara confirmed about the ceiling, everything came back to you. Foolish and ignorant humans see you as nothing more than a mass of chakra controlled by hatred, but I have always seen you as more than that. You could have told that it wasn't Madara who compelled you to attack Konoha. Even if someone was wearing a mask, you should be able to tell the chakra that summons you. Naruto was staring straight into the eyes of the Kyuubi as he spoke. The Biju had withheld vital information from him. It was information that could have simplified things. Even now, there were still things that he didn't understand and he needed to understand them. The Kyuubi had to provide the answers he needed. Naruto wasn't going to care about anything else if the Biju still refused to tell him what he needed to know. He was prepared to use Shisui's eye to get the Biju to behave. It was important that the Biju cooperated. He would seek that cooperation first before going into extreme measures. It would be difficult to get along with the Biju once he does go to that path, but there would be no other choice for him if it still refuses to tell him important information that could save his future. You have already stopped the Akatsuki, why do you still need to know? Kurama asked in a curious tone. Dealing with pain meant that he had stopped the Akatsuki from trying to capture all Bijuas. Not only that, but the threat to his life had been removed. There was no need to know anything if he was only concerned about his life and his little dreams. Well, with the blonde, you could never know. He did like knowing things that could be useful to him. Perhaps that was the idea he had. If reviving the Jubi could suit Naruto's agenda, then the blonde would not mind doing it. Kurama wouldn't even put it past the blonde to use the cursed Sharingan to control the Rinnegan wielder to get him to do the dirty work for him. There was no doubt that Pain possessed the strength, and it would take a remarkable shinobi to stop him. But of course, the blonde would have to remove the threat to his life on his extraction. Well, he would not need to do so if he could find a way to revive the Yondaime Hokage and get the other half of him the man's seal within him before he s. Wasn't it something though? Normally, he would break free if the man s, but his other half went into the afterlife with Minato. That was precisely because the seal the man had used was linked to his soul. It is only the body that s, but the soul is eternal, hence his other half was dragged to the afterlife. Asking me that question, Naruto paused looking at the Biju with an expressionless mask. Are you that concerned about the darkness in me? Does it scare you or is it your own survival that you're concerned about? Kurama was silent for a few moments before responding. The darkness of you is certainly something humans should frighten. Whilst unlikely, but if it does happen, and you lose it, with the knowledge to bring this world to its knees and the mind to manipulate the cages, all humans could cease to exist in this world. You have flirted with that idea on a couple of occasions and it remains an option should you lose all hope. No, something just has to happen to your mother. I think you'd use it as an excuse because there is that part of you that even you, that really wants to kill people. Naruto tilted his head to the side. So, it is the darkness, he said. I'm not too concerned about that at the moment. I know of ways to handle that issue. As you have noticed, things are turning up for me. I have more things to care for these days. The blonde paused and shook his head. Then, let us begin. I have the time, and the determination to get the information out from you in any means if you refuse to comply with my humble request. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.